Welcome to the Tourism AI podcast, where we talk about all things at the intersection of artificial intelligence and tourism. And today we are doing one of our episodes with Kendall and I, where we walk through some of what's going on in the news and some of the big headlines that we share amongst each other in our little group chat, and just sort of talk about their implications, not only for tourism, but for business in general. And before we get into the topics, Kendall, I will just say that I don't know about you, but it feels to me like the last week or two has felt like there's a shift happening in the AI space, and there's a lot of things that have been announced. OpenAI has made a bunch of announcements. There just feels like we've hit the next phase of AI sort of tooling and adoption and sort of agentic workflows and all these different things. But it's starting to feel really real, and I think that if you haven't felt the impact of AI in your role, in your job, in your life yet, I think you're about to. So that's my overall kind of opening statement for today's episode. So why don't we start off with our big stories?
I can't keep up to the group chat anymore. It's like every day there's a new link. So we'll be digging into lots of those today. And then, if you're listening, you want to stick around to the end. We're going to talk about why a cafe in Japan is hiring paralyzed people. So that'll be our last topic of this chat. So our first big topic today, big headline is Microsoft makes it even easier to cheat at your job with AI agents in Office. Ooh, it's a little bit clickbaity, I think. So Microsoft has added this agent mode to their Copilot. And basically within Word or Excel, these agents can route to the agents with Claude or ChatGPT. So depending on your prompt or what you're asking it, it will kind of route to the agents within these other platforms, depending on what it is. If it's coding or Excel, it's probably going to route to Claude, etc. So that's the big headline. I know you have lots of thoughts about this to share.
Yeah. So before we actually get into kind of my thoughts and the conversation we're going to have, let me maybe just start off by, probably a lot of people aren't even familiar with the fact that, sort of prior to this announcement, another big announcement that Microsoft made was that they have actually now made Claude available in the Microsoft Copilot as well. So, for people that aren't following the space that closely, Microsoft was pretty tied to the hip with OpenAI from the beginning. So Microsoft is a major shareholder in OpenAI. And, as a result of that, Microsoft's AI technologies were leaning on basically OpenAI or ChatGPT's technology as the sort of operating system in the background, or the AI system in the background. And I think it was just last week or maybe the week before, Microsoft actually announced that now Claude is also available in Copilot. So that's a fairly big deal. That's a fairly big shift, if you will. And, to me, I'll just say before we sort of dive into the topic, I hear a lot of frustrations about Microsoft Copilot, and, it's, less capable and, not a little bit more clunky than, just using a chat GPT out of the box. And to me, it feels like Microsoft's really leveling up, really making a lot of capabilities available, obviously having multiple different, AI tools now. So similar to Google, I think, which was a little behind on sort of becoming really good at AI, and now Gemini is, arguably leading the charge. Microsoft really stepped that up, I'd say, in the last couple of weeks here, last month, by making both models available inside a Copilot. And before I get off this point, I will just say that if you're experiencing that you have Copilot because that's what your work uses, and it sort of doesn't have a lot of capabilities, that's probably more of an IT function, locking down capabilities, than it necessarily is the actual tool itself. It's sort of a broad statement, but there's a lot of ability in Microsoft Copilot for IT departments to lock down certain things, to allow certain use cases and not allow you certain use cases. So, just because your workplace uses Copilot doesn't mean you're using all of Copilot's capabilities. So, I just want to kind of have people have that sort of understanding of, we're talking about now the ability to use agents in Copilot, and some people may be like, what are you talking about? I don't have that ability. So it may or may not be the Copilot. It might be your IT department not letting you use those tools. So just wanted to start with that.
Right. So I've been seeing actually like a lot of kind of, I guess, hate, or just like a lot of people kind of complaining about this. They're saying that it's like outputting a lot more AI slop. It's giving way to a lot of people just producing more and more content that actually is taking more time to go through, have the human in the loop review. Like upper levels of management are saying that they're needing to take more time to like review things because people are just kind of using it willy-nilly. So obviously there's pros and cons with agents. I think they're only going to get better. You are way more in the world of the agent side than me. What are you seeing right now?
Yeah. So first of all, I have a message to those upper level managers. If you're seeing a lot more AI slop, invest in AI literacy, create AI responsibilities, responsible AI's policies and principles, create guardrails, give people an understanding on how to use these agents. So if you're getting a lot of crap AI slop, it's your fault as the leader. This is your job, is to actually give people the tools and give people the training, give people the guardrails, give people the parameters, help people actually use these tools. So, it's not the tools that create, I mean, yes, the tools on their own create AI slop, but when implemented with the right context and the right processes and the right human oversight, because there's, process steps where human oversight is baked in, then, and a lot of education, then you shouldn't get AI slop, right? So, I will say we use AI a lot in our agency, and I've been just seeing nothing but amazing feedback from our clients on the quality of content that we're putting out, as an example, right? We do a lot of content marketing, and I hear nothing but, man, the content is just like really leveled up, and it's amazing because we have policies, we have processes, we have context engineering, we have systems, right? So yes, if you just set people free on these tools and don't tell them how to use them, then you're going to get garbage in, garbage out, right? So that's my first statement on that. But I will say, obviously, we are fully into the agentic world now. It was sort of last year, this time, there was just starting to be conversation about AI. By January, it was like 2025 is going to be a year of AI agents. And, while we've seen, throughout early 2025, sort of, people talking about agentic workflows and sort of, agents kind of, creeping up more and more. I feel like now where we are, October 2025 is like we're fully in the agentic world, right? So, again, to me, it's not about agents are bad versus chatbots are bad. It's about we need to level up as leaders. We need to level up our organizations. We need to we need to figure out how to deal with these things. This is a whole new world we're in, right? It's a new paradigm. And so um, it's the role of leaders to step up and actually support their organizations through all of this.
I just have a question for my own personal curiosity. So I know that we're kind of in the middle of building an agent right now ourselves. What's kind of like the difference between, these built-in agents that would be like in Copilot, for example, and like a custom built one?
Yeah. So, I mean, that's a really good question. So, first of all, context is kind of the main thing, and data, access to data. So, inside Copilot, and I haven't used the Copilot agent, so I can't speak from first hand experience. But, really, if you think about the ability of an agent to be able to do good work, they need access to information and context, right? So, I was at a meeting I had a lady reach out to me about a booking agent for booking hotel rooms, and she gave me a nice demo, and it was really fancy and it looked really cool. And maybe it's great, maybe it's not, I don't know, I haven't dug into enough. But the problem with a tool like that is that you sort of have to kind of provide it with the right context. You have to give it access to certain information pieces, those types of things, and that's all great. But for example, the agent tool that we're building, we'll go back 5 years of all of the data sources and actually like read through all of them and build context systems agentically with all of that information. And then the humans have to sort of say, yeah, this is the right information, the right context. And so it could just, the ability to swallow so much historical data. And then also, in real time, also look at, your Google Analytics or your, CRM data or your whatever, so that it can actually make adjustments in real time. Like, so the difference is like, a really basic, simple agent that just doesn't have access to a lot of data sources versus one that's plugged into a bunch of data sources and it can actually react in real time to real data and make adjustments as we go. So, that's kind of the foundational difference. But, you know, it's early days on these agents, right? So I can only imagine they're just going to get better and better over time. And I wonder too if some of the criticism of these AI agents that are coming out is fear and job loss fear, because all of a sudden you have these agents that can do all these things on your behalf, and it's like, well, okay, so that's going to have a big impact on the workforce if suddenly it can take all these steps and do all these things. Uh, it's sort of hard to understand where those sort of comments are coming from. If it's legitimate, we're seeing a bunch of slop and garbage, or if it's like, oh my God, this is like really serious and we need to stop this, right?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head that it's likely due to a lack of training. And then, like the headline says, it's giving people the ability to cheat at work. So obviously, that's kind of alluding to some shadow use, maybe presenting work as your own. So again, not having those policies in place. And then to like some of the other things I've seen about this is that it kind of will change those junior level roles, right? So maybe some fear there as well.
Yeah, the junior level role thing, because that's actually probably my biggest concern right now is, I'm sort of a little bit concerned for the young people coming into the workforce right now, right? Because they just don't have that real work ability, like the real work experience and understanding, the understanding the difference between, what's accurate or what's good versus what AI puts out, right? That sort of discernment and that sort of that some people call it taste, you know what I mean? It's really easy. And I should give this example. I'm going to pick on one who works for us, who's a, incredibly capable guy, right? Incredibly smart, incredibly tech savvy, but a lot of his learning is self-taught through YouTube videos and stuff like that. And it's one thing to teach yourself through YouTube videos, and it's another thing to, have a master's level education and 20 years experience and having, gone through the trenches and done it yourself many times and seeing it succeed and fail, right? Like you just can't replace that real experience. And at this point, at least, I don't see our ability to sort of really bake in those real human experiences and nuance and those things into these agents, at least not yet, right? And so, for young people, it's really interesting because I think young people really have to understand where they can bring value and be really cautious about where the AI is going to replace the jobs they typically do, right? So again, it's a big conversation and a big question. I'm going to pick on one again. One can bring value in a lot of different places. He's an incredibly talented, incredibly skilled guy. But, there's places for one to play a role, and there's places for, guys like Animesh who we're working with as well, who's got that master's and that experience and have, been in the world of work for a number of years and sort of understands how, leaders react in those types of things, right? There's a role for both of them. But I think we really need to start thinking about, in this new world where AI can do a lot of the work that the junior people can do, how do we make sure that those young people still have the opportunities so they can grow up to be those managers and to, you know what I mean, to be those leaders? Because if we shut them out, like, I'm really concerned about the future of work, not because the AI is going to take over, but because we're not going to give opportunities to young people to gain those experiences.
Yeah, that's so true. Like, I guess if we're looking 20 years in the future, and once these younger people have that kind of work experience under their belt, someone like Juan who is investing the time to learn and, be in the trenches, like you're saying, of like all this change that AI brings, he's going to have so much experience and such a wealth of knowledge compared to those who are kind of burying their head in the sand and not even taking the time right now to do those things. So I think he doesn't have that yet, but I think he's going to be well positioned in the future for sure.
He is. And I'm, just before we get off this point, because I think it's an important one, it's not just young people. So I met, a mom from my kids' hockey team the other day, and she was talking about needing to go back into the workforce and, kind of has a bit of a tourism background and was interested in what we did. And, we got talking and, the whole conversation started off with, let me help you, let me teach you how to use ChatGPT to do your like actually hockey team volunteer work
Mhm.
better. And, I sort of said, hey, are you guys paying for, I had a sort of a couple of moms around me that I was helping, and I said, is anybody here paying for, ChatGPT or for Gemini or whatever? And I said, it's $20 a month. And they all were just like, that's crazy. I'll never pay $20. What is it? And they started like balking at it. And it's like, you know what? Like, if you want to go back into the workforce, or if you're in the workforce and your employer is not paying for your $20 ChatGPT account or whatever, like it's on you. You need to become AI capable and AI ready, because if you don't know how to, like, I'm telling you as an employer and as a person hiring right now, this is what I'm asking questions about. And it's not just, do you know how to prompt? It's like, give me examples, be specific. We need to hire people who kind of are self-starting and who get this stuff, because I don't have time. I can't, like, this stuff, to the opening of this conversation, it's moving so fast that I need people that are naturally curious, that are self-starting, that are, believe that, lifelong learning is the only way forward. Because if you're not that person, you're going to struggle to have a valuable role in this workforce today, I think.
Yeah. So we shifted a little bit off of our the headline, but before we move on, do you have anything else to add about agents?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say it's early days. So, these agents are pretty amazing. Like, I'll just say I actually used this is directly, Kendall's been helping me a little bit because I've been a little overwhelmed with a few things. And so I asked Kendall to go look at some flights for me for a trip I have to take. And I actually asked ChatGPT agent mode to do the same thing. And it kind of came up with similar recommendations. And so again, I mean, that's pretty incredible, right? And what's cool about the agent mode when you watch it operate in ChatGPT is you can actually see its like chain of thought. You can actually see it opening websites. So if you think about booking a flight, I gave it dates, I gave it locations, I gave it sort of timelines, and it actually goes in, it'll actually put in the information so that it can bring up the right flights. You know what I mean? It's actually filling forms. It's actually like doing like what humans normally do. It's pretty amazing. My only recommendation to people, first of all, obviously you need to have a paid ChatGPT account, or you need to have agent mode kind of available in your Copilot or whatever. But like, give it a try and just watch its chain of thought, and it really starts to feel real when you can see it sort of in action. And it's really like we're entering a new world here.
Totally. Cool. Okay, well, let's jump to the next one then. So the headline is OpenAI just launched instant checkout. So now, right within ChatGPT, you can, get recommendations through your chat and then do an instant checkout. So far this is only, I think, rolled out in the US and with Shopify and Etsy, which I'll say starting with Etsy, I think is really cool because that's all like, probably I think Etsy is mostly small businesses, handmade businesses. So what a great opportunity for those people to be able to sell their stuff right within ChatGPT. But this just opens up a whole new world. Let's bring it to tourism and what this means in the future for, booking experiences, hotels. I know we've talked a little bit about using agents for these things, but this is even different than that now. So, you know, where do you think this is going?
Yeah, I mean, I first of all, I'm just gonna comment about what a big deal this is. And as you guys know, the other thing that I think, and I don't know because I haven't been following, but the Stripe seems to be kind of getting into this with OpenAI as well. So the Stripe payment platform more broadly. But I think people have no kind of appreciation for exactly the impact that this is going to have on their businesses, on marketing. And, I just said this to our team this morning about like, just think about it from a marketing agency perspective, like what this means. This is a completely different way of marketing, selling, tracking sales, right? And so analytics, how your information's inputted into the forms or whatever, so that it actually can, identify and make the sale. So first of all, from a human workload perspective, I actually think there's like a whole bunch of work coming out of this new capability. But from a just from a destination or from a, tourism perspective, if you're not showing up in AI powered search, you're not in this game. Like you are not in this conversation, right? So, before obviously we had the OTAs or you had Google and people can sort of search around and find things. But, now it's like, hey, you go ask ChatGPT to, hey, I want to go do X, Y, and Z, and I have a family of 4 and, we'd like to go swimming or whatever. And you give this huge prompt and it basically makes a bunch of recommendations to you as to what to do in location or in city. And now you can go ahead and book everything. You're not even looking at any other options. You're just like, yeah, sounds good. Go and book, right? So like the implications of this are very, very big for every single brand. So, we're talking about, GEO or generative engine optimization, or I actually prefer search everywhere optimization. But like starting point from a marketing perspective is you need to really, as quickly as possible, get into the sort of making sure you're found by AI chatbots and AI tools. And then obviously, if you're the type of company that can actually connect with these shopping agents, you need to make sure that your inventory is set up in a way that these AI tools can actually, understand them and shop them, right? So a lot of work, I think, for agencies like us. Good news. A lot of work for brands, and this to me is what really makes where the rubber hits the road, right? When now all of a sudden we're talking about real commercial transactions, it's a whole new game, right? And so, if you haven't been paying attention to AI and implementing AI and figuring out what AI means for your business yet, I think we're going to start to see like literally drop offs like to zero bookings, or not zero quite, but very significant drop offs, for people that relied on Google for all these years and all of a sudden their competitors are transacting online with ChatGPT. It's really, really impactful.
Yeah, it's I mean, for years, I feel like there's been that debate about like traditional advertising versus digital advertising. I think people often go for the big, sexy things, right? They want the billboard, they want the bus, the side of the bus. But really, like those funds should really be spent on optimizing like your web content, like you're saying. Is there any indication that you've seen so far where LLMs will pull, like, let's just use hotels for an example, where they're going to pull hotels from? Is it going to be like OTA listings? Is it going to be the DMO website? Have you seen anything about this yet?
There's lots of conversation about this, and I would say the consensus generally is that there's actually a huge opportunity to disrupt the OTA market here and actually get direct bookings now through these tools. So, I think the OTAs obviously aren't idiots, and they're going to do everything they can to sort of stay in the game and stay at the top of the game. But I think there's if your hotel can reposition its online presence and do good geo to make sure that you're found by these tools, there's going to be an opportunity for direct bookings. Now, I will say, this is my limited experience, but when I told you about the airlines I went to go sort of look for, it actually went to Kayak. It didn't go to Air Canada and WestJet. And so, that was interesting just as an observation, right? And so, at this point, probably the reality is that, those OTAs are probably well positioned to capture this. But at the same time, destinations, hotels, everybody needs to figure out how to like make sure they get their share of the market and their share of the search results, right? And transaction results. So again, I think the bigger point is there's lots to do on the marketing side. And there's an opportunity, I think, to kind of take back market share for some of those OTAs for the hotels and the tourism operators that want to sort of take control of their own destiny.
Yeah, I actually saw too that OpenAI is going to be charging like a commission on anything that gets sold through their platform. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out too, just in terms of, if it is going through an OTA, like are operators paying a commission twice? Or like, can they opt out? Will OTAs decrease their commission to compete? Like, I feel like there's going to be like a whole kind of thing around
Well, and
commission.
the other thing that sort of has been kind of trending around in the AI space a little bit is that OpenAI is looking for somebody to help with like sort of building up an advertising platform, right? So, you know, how does that fit into this whole thing, right? Is it a pay to play model? Oh, I advertise now, my property shows up. Things are getting really interesting really fast, right? But what's interesting about this whole thing, Kendall, is that the buyer's journey is shrinking. It's flattening, right? My observation is people trust large language models, whether that's right or not, whether they should or not, they do. And so, if ChatGPT says, here's the place to go, that's the place to go. And that's the place you're probably going to go. And so, it's no longer searching through 10 blue links, doing research, whatever. It's like, okay, give me 3 options. Okay, I picked this one, go and, make the transaction happen. Right. So, that's a big deal. And so your website needs to be set up to answer all the questions, to make sure it's connecting all the dots for people and giving them the comfort they need to let their AI agent or their AI sort of chatbot make the purchase on their behalf, right? So yeah, this is we're really into something new here and something pretty big.
I think I'm like their target audience, or like I'll be like their best use case because I do not have long customer journeys. I like want the quickest answer. I test drove my one car and I'm like, I'll take this one. I don't even need to test drive anymore. Like the first thing you give me, I'll take. I don't want to spend any time trying to like compare. So yeah, good use case here for that.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
Okay, so the next headline that just came out is Sam Altman predicts AI will surpass human intelligence by 2030. This is a pretty, I think, what I'm seeing is it's a very kind of supercharged estimate, I suppose. But, what I liked, there were some things in this article that I liked. And the one thing I liked about it was that it talked about the super intelligence. So taking over tasks instead of roles. So, we might see between 30 to 40% of tasks being taken over by this. I liked how that was framed. I liked that it wasn't framed as like taking over jobs. It's just going to take over tasks. And I think that's, even if we look at the way education's going in terms of like micro credentials instead of full degrees, it's like there really does seem like there's this way to make it more of like a colleague, a pseudo colleague, as opposed to like taking on the full jobs. Anyways, I digress. What the other part I liked about this is that, skills matter more than tasks. So really, like you were talking about before, like that creativity, the empathy, that deep local insight, and especially from like a tourism perspective, cultural sensitivity, like all those things become so, so important as destinations and tourism professionals. Just off the top, what is your kind of take on this headline, on this article, on what he's saying?
Yeah. So first of all, in terms of the headline, which is, Sam Altman predicts AI will surpass human intelligence by 2030. It's actually, I would say, old news. And I would say that this 2030 has been sort of the timeline that Dario Amodei from Anthropic, or Claude now, they've, I think, kind of gotten rid of Anthropic. So Claude, Mustafa Solomon, and all these like leading AI researchers have really been talking about basically 2030 as kind of like the estimate of when we're going to hit this AGI, or when we're going to hit artificial general intelligence, which again there's no clear definition of what AGI is, but my favorite definition is the point in time at which AI will be as good or better at humans at every economically viable task. That's the definition I use. And 2030 really is kind of what everybody's been talking about for a while. Why he came out with this now, I'm not really sure, other than maybe he's doing some fundraising or something, whatever. But I think the bigger point beyond the headline is actually this sort of, to your point, this kind of thing about tasks, right? Uh, I read or I listened to a podcast a little while ago, and I don't know the exact details, but this person was talking about sort of how the business org chart is probably going to sort of be irrelevant, and it's probably going to be more like a task chart. And you know what I mean? And it's sort of like, okay, we sort of map out our organizations based on the tasks that have to be executed. And then we overlay agents and humans on top of those tasks, right? So the agents are maybe executing most of the tasks. Humans are overseeing the agents of the execution of tasks. And there are these like fluid org charts where, you know what I mean? It's
Mhm.
really task focused as opposed to sort of, my job is X and these are the things I do in my job. So, you know, to be determined what happens to this sort of traditional org chart, but it's an interesting way to think about things. And what I will say is that I'm very mindful and thoughtful right now about tasks. Everything is about sort of, process and tasks. And, when teach people how to use generative AI tools, it's all about, context engineering and context orchestration and sort of understanding which tasks, can be intelligently automated and those types of things. So, 100%. This is the mindset shift everybody has to have. And it's actually about which tasks can be handled by the AI agents, which tasks can be handled by the humans. And, to the point of the 30 to 40% of tasks, there's always going to be room for humans to negotiate. And, the AI agents aren't going to go make big corporate decisions. Humans are. And so, there's a role for humans to play. And so, but humans have to sort of, really be mindful of and think about and double down on what makes them human, which is their personality and their negotiating skills and their convincing skills and their, discernment and all those things we've talked about in past episodes, right? So yeah, it's quite interesting. But I think we're gonna, in the next 3 to 5 years, really see complete transformation, top to bottom. And I don't think anybody's ready for it. I think that's maybe why Sam Altman's starting to talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just gonna say, right before you said that, I was gonna say, I'm ready for it. I'm excited for it. Maybe I'm not ready for it, but maybe I'm excited for it because I think that maybe I shouldn't be. I don't know. I don't know what to feel about this, but it does. I love the idea of flipping the org chart. And I love the idea of, I almost think that's something that we should be doing now, where it's not like, this is your job in a box, right? It's like, these are the things that
Mhm.
need to be executed. What's your skill set? You can do this. It's something that I already love about, I kind of I term myself as a generalist, and I like being able to bounce around and put my hands into different things and just help move things across the line where I can. So I really feel that this kind of evolution and flipping the org chart kind of really speaks to the way that I like working anyways. So for me, it sounds great, but I could see how it'd
Yeah, but
be,
if you're like a real hardcore specialist,
yeah,
maybe this is really scary, right?
yeah, right. That's what I was going to say is it might not sound exciting for everybody. So I guess, TBA on
Yeah,
that
what's
one.
interesting about this, I'll just make another comment about this. These tools what they're building is these sort of, to your point, these sort of specialists and generalists in some ways, right? But it's, it's really companies like OpenAI are only going to be able to build so much so fast. And then it's like really, think about Tourism Ops AI, which is the tool we're planning to build, which is going to be super, super niche focused specifically on tourism and certain aspects of tourism and certain parts of tourism. And those things are only going to be built by companies like us because OpenAI can't do it all. And so, I read this interesting article the other day, and it was sort of like about what's going to be automated first. And it's like, well, the answer is the things that people decide to put their effort into. Obviously, we're building Tourism Ops AI because there's some, pain points and things in the tourism industry that we see, that we hear, that people have. As tourism, there's not enough humans doing the work. So it's the opposite problem. So if we can actually free up some of the mind numbing kind of real paper pushing kind of work so that humans can spend more time wowing people with good tourism opportunities, that's fantastic. That's a win, right? In other industries, though, it's a little bit more bleak than that. And it's, fully automating full jobs that people do. But it's really wherever somebody decides to put effort into automating. So, right now, everybody's talking about coding, and because that's where all of these people are coders at the end of the day. They're all computer engineers and coders and AI guys. And so obviously that's what they know. And so that's obviously what's going first. It makes perfect sense, right?
Yeah.
Sadly for us, marketing's probably soon behind it. And obviously their language models, so communication's soon behind it, right? So, but yeah, it's sort of just, good for people to understand that it's not just like suddenly these tools, suddenly OpenAI out of the box is going to be able to do your job. It's just not going to work that way. But, parts of your job could be automated if somebody decides to put effort into that.
Right. And we're putting effort into it. So it's
We are.
exciting. All right. So the next story is kind of on line with our parenting segment. So this article I came across, unfortunately, I see it now has a paywall behind it. When I earlier read it, it was really great. So AI is triaging mothers' hidden labor. So this article is all about how mothers, and I'm assuming some fathers, but I think there's like a bit of a niche here with how moms are using AI. So we're using AI tools like ChatGPT and Claude to manage the invisible labor of parenting. Some people in the article are describing it as like the third parent in their family or like the third leg of the stool. I resonated with this a lot, and I'd be curious to hear like your thought from a father's perspective. But I know that I use ChatGPT a lot differently than my husband uses it. And I use it for a lot of that, I would say, like kind of emotional labor and arguments between my kids. Like, there's often times where your kids are fighting about something and you're like, I didn't hear part of it. I don't know who's in the right. Let's put it on a voice note, talk it out. Like they can be the mediator. Like I want to stay out of this. It makes me like Switzerland and scheduling or like helping plan meals, looking for recipes, helping with schedules, destination itineraries. Like there's just so much as a parent that I use ChatGPT for. And I think that for me, it's like it's helped so much. How are you using it as like a dad?
Yeah, this resonates a lot with me as well. And so, first of all, maybe before I answer your question, I'll just sort of say it obviously aligns with OpenAI did a study just recently about how people are using ChatGPT based on millions and millions of sort of chats and use cases. And, it was their consumer app. So, it wasn't sort of representative of what's happening in the enterprise, but it was like I actually, kind of referenced this last time, but now I remember the quote. It's 70% of use is actually personal. So obviously people are using it for a lot of things like this. And a lot of it is some people, there's a percentage of people that just use it as a glorified, Google search tool. But some people are using it more of a therapist or a personal therapist or a marriage counselor or a parent assistant, those types of things. And that's a big, big use case, right? So, I'm going to share a story to answer your question. And this is actually really like I don't even know, but when ChatGPT first came out, I had one of my sons was pretty sick, and he was anyways, whatever I forget the sickness he had, but it was causing some neurological challenges for him. And he was really, really light sensitive, and he was really irritated and agitated. Like I couldn't even look at him without him like just like exploding on me and like having a complete nervous breakdown. It was really challenging. My wife was out of town, and I was trying to like get through to him, and like we're fighting, and he shut his door on me, and I was literally gonna like take his like door off. Like I was gonna remove his door so he couldn't like lock himself in or whatever. And then kids went to bed, and I like had nowhere to turn. So I just started, talking to ChatGPT about what was going on. And it was like, do not remove his door. That's going to cause psychological harm. That's, you know what I mean? And it like actually talked me off a cliff. And it was super helpful for that. And it was just like, gave me some rational, neutral kind of like ideas on how to deal with the situation. It was strep throat that he had actually.
Okay.
And it was pretty like advanced strep throat. And so apparently, I don't know, I think it causes some neurological challenge. So anyways, long story short is really talked me off a cliff, really helped me think through the sort of situation, gave me some advice. And, the advice was, obviously don't do those things. Here's why. But, maybe it's go see a doctor, go see this. Like it gave me some really good advice. So, 100% I resonate with this. And, that was actually a long time ago. And, what I'll say is, I think this agent mode conversation we just had around things like planning and stuff like that is going to be huge for just reducing the mental workload. We're all are, for me, the idea of reducing your mental workload really just resonates from a professional perspective more than a parenting perspective. Maybe that's because I'm a dad and I just don't have as much mental workload as mom does. It's just the way it is. But I just feel less tired at the end of the day, work wise, and I get way more done. Right? Like it's just like a little bit less mental workload overall. So, yeah, I think it makes sense from a parenting perspective as well. How about you? Is it sort of have you found it sort of like reduces some of your mental load?
Yeah. One thing that I often like hear about in my circle of friends, and I think just generally in motherhood, is that we used to have a village. Like moms didn't work as much. We had people to turn to. We had a network of friends and family and grandmas who we could drop our kids off with, call for help. I mean, I used to, when my grandma was still alive, like she used to call me every day and like we used to chat. And that was when I was like a really young adult. But as a mom now, my mom still works. We just don't have a village like we used to, right? And so I think, one of the quotes in here was that ChatGPT has kind of like become that extended village. So you don't have like the grandma or the same, your friends are all working too. Like you just don't have the availability of people to turn to for venting or for advice. And I feel like that's kind of where I really use it. So it almost is like this extended village, which is kind of a bizarre way of looking at it. But like you said,
Yeah.
it's an outlet, right? It's an outlet, and I
Yeah.
do think that it does take a lot of that, even my daughter's birthday, I planned this, like, extravagant, like, scavenger hunt/challenge slash challenge game, like, that would have caused me so much mental stress before because I am not good at those things, and
Mhm.
it helped me plan it in, like, an evening with lots of back and forth and, like, input and stuff, and I actually felt excited about it, putting it together, which I don't normally feel excited about those things when I have to do it by myself, so less stress. It takes, like, almost like the burden of things off because it's just, like, helping me
Mhm.
walk through things. So, yeah,
Yeah.
I definitely
But
think
what
it's
I
a
will
great.
say, Kendall, in response to this is like similar to kind of the work environment is like, be mindful of what you download to the AI agent and what you are the human in the loop, right? So
Totally.
again, if it gives me advice on parenting, that's just one input of advice. Maybe my wife would be another good source of advice. Maybe my parents would be another good source of advice, right? So, I think the danger here is just like, okay, yeah, ChatGPT said, here's how I got to parent you. And then all of a sudden you got like AI
Yeah.
parenting your children. And that's a slippery slope and a dangerous path.
Oh my god.
And sadly, one I think many parents will go down, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And so, where's the human in the loop, and where is unique humanity need to play a role? But these are conversations as society we need to have. So I'm glad we're having it here on this podcast.
Mhm, absolutely. Alright. We're gonna move to our rapid fire round. So I feel like this one's no surprise. So McKinsey came out with a report recently saying digital and AI transformation is about culture, not technology. So, wow, it sounds a lot like what we have been repeating over and over and over. So, it's not because it's saying the tech initiatives fail, not because the tools aren't ready, but because the people aren't. And the bottleneck is leadership. Interesting, hey?
I don't know, Kendall. I'm really glad that they spent whatever god awful amount of money to come up with this conclusion, but I'm glad that they came up with it. And so I'm being a little facetious. Obviously, McKinsey's a big consulting firm that is not affordable for most people. But yeah, I mean, literally what you read there is what I've been saying on repeat for as long as I've been doing this. So I'm glad that it's being kind of verified by others.
So, I mean, in terms of a headline, I'm assuming that's like a hype level, like 10.
I guess. I mean, To me, it's like obviously, but
Yeah.
usually the most obvious thing isn't that obvious, or common sense isn't that common, or whatever you want to say, right? So again, I'm just, yeah, it's a 10 because I'm happy that it's being, said by others, and it's being, obviously, this particular report, it was specifically focused on hospitality. So that's really, great that it's being kind of shared at that sort of big 30,000 foot level. And then, our job is to sort of keep repeating it from the ground up, and then hopefully eventually people will get there. It's interesting. I'll just, before I move on to this, I was talking to Andreas, who is a frequent guest on this podcast and our partner with Next Gen Destination Marketing, and we were just talking about sort of selling these AI adoption services and these AI literacy trainings and all this kind of stuff. And like we were just talking about how, like, I think we're just early still. We've been talking about this for 18 months, and we've been, yes, taking people through it, but I think people just are starting to get their heads around, oh, we need to think about our culture and how this impacts people, and you know what I mean? Like things that I feel like we've been repeating for so long. Like I feel like we're just early in that conversation. And it's nice to see finally, hopefully it becomes the main conversation that everybody's having, because it is the one we have to have.
Well, McKinsey said it now, so,
That must be true.
it must be true. All right, Peter, you shared this one, I think, a few days ago with our group chat. It's a report from Amadeus. Is that how you say it? Amadeus? So, AI plus social media are transforming travel. So, they released a report saying that people are making decisions now. So, they're kind of moving away from traditional search, and they're moving to recommendations that are, driven by Instagram or TikTok. I can relate to this because when I go to a new city, I search for that city on Instagram and I look at the trending reels for food and restaurant recommendations. So I definitely personally see why this is happening. But yeah, just from your perspective and hype meter, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I would say this is sort of a 8 out of 10 on the hype meter, in context of, like, it does not surprise me. It's not really super earth shattering, but it is nice for them to kind of bring some data behind it and some actual analytics behind it, right? It's interesting. The whole conversation around social has changed so much, and my perspective on it has changed so much. You know this, Kendall, but I absolutely, for the last while, absolutely despised and hated organic social media. Found it to have very little actual value for businesses other than brand and being out there and having we have to have a social media kind of presence. But now it's back to kind of where it started, which is it's a really critical part of your online presence, and people are going there and trusting, and people are, I think it's sort of, to me, speaks to the broader trend of kind of user referrals, right? So it's like, hey, if I shared something on my social media about a place I went to or whatever, you know what I mean? Then you're going to trust me more because I shared it or because I'm talking about it or whatever, right? Similarly, if a destination shares something about something happening and a bunch of people comment and like, and it gets blown up, that just gives social proof, right? And so people feel more comfortable with that social proof. So it's, to me, it's like social media has come full circle.
Okay.
And now, these tools are like, referencing social media posts, and you know what I mean. They're indexing social media now,
Mhm.
so all of a sudden, social media is extremely valuable. And I think you and I did a deep dive of our analytics the other day, and I think our social media posts actually are the biggest contributor of traffic to our website, which is something that would you just didn't see that much previously.
Mhm.
Our I think our own data is kind of backing this up.
Yeah, and just to build on a point you said there about searchability. So, the importance with social now, especially Instagram, is that like ChatGPT, LLMs are, like you said, indexing, they're searching through Instagram, they're pulling content from Instagram feeds. So it's super important. I'll just kind of speak to the CIPR communication side, our digital PR agency. And we do a lot of social media work over there. So the importance of adding alt text images and ensuring that there's like actually SEO keywords built into captions now. It's almost become this really important way of being found, right?
Yeah.
For search and for LLMs.
Yeah. Well, and that's why, like, for me, I was sort of, we have this GEO service that we just launched, but I'm actually going to rebrand it to, search out everywhere optimization, because, like, that's really what it comes down to, right? Like, we got to kind of optimize everywhere where people can search things. And this is just, another place people can search things and find information. And, they're relying on it more and more. Um, Why that is, I'm not 100% sure. Like, I don't know what's shifted in the consumer's mind. Is it just that Google's become less reliable? Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure, but it's obviously happening.
Absolutely. And we adapt. So
Okay.
we're going to move to Japan. So this is our last, if you stuck around to the end, this is where we talk about what I was teased at the front. So, a cafe in Japan hires paralyzed people to operate robot servers, allowing them to earn an income. I think you shared this. It was an Instagram post. You shared it in our group chat. I included it in here. I just thought it was really cool. I thought it was just a really nice innovation.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting. It reminds me of when I was before doing this. I used to work in another organization where there was an organization called Employabilities, and it was all employ abilities. And so to me, it's like this is a neat sort of use case. Paralyzed people have a lot of abilities and mental abilities, and so it's like this is a neat, to me, sort of positive around all of this, where all of a sudden you can have somebody that may be otherwise sort of employable, challenged, if you will, or can't do everything, can play a meaningful role in society. So I think it's fantastic. I'd like to see more of it.
Amazing. And I also just want to note we talk so much about like AI and technology taking over jobs. I love this because it is using technology to actually give humans a job and a
Yeah,
purpose. So I think that's
yeah,
a really nice way to end our episode today.
yeah. I'm gonna give
Mhm.
this one a 10 out of 10 because I like it so much.
Perfect.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, great chat today. Thank you.
Yeah, and before we close, Kendall, I just want to sort of, I guess, maybe end with kind of what we started with, which is, I've really noticed a noticeable change in kind of tone from people like Sam Altman, and, you know, OpenAI has kind of hinted that there's going to be a whole bunch of announcements coming over the next little while. Microsoft's making some changes and announcements. Like, there's a lot happening, and as somebody who pays attention to this space, it just feels like the volume just got upped by 10. So it's not like little changes. And this is sort of what is going to, I think, what everybody's anticipating in the AI space is that the more AI you have, the faster things are going to change, because the AI is actually going to be able to accelerate, development and deployment and stuff. And so, I think we're just kind of finally there where it's really going to impact humans in every way, and they're going to really start to feel it. So, this is, if you haven't, sort of started thinking about AI adoption in your organization, now is the second best time, because, 6 months ago was a better time, but it's never too late. And I think everybody needs to get on it as quickly as possible. If we can help, wonderful. But there's lots of resources out there, and just get on it. That's my number one. My number one sort of talking point to everybody is just get on it as quickly as possible, whatever way you can.
And obviously, we share a lot of resources on our social feeds and in our circle community. So we'll make sure we add those links in the podcast description so you can join us there too.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.